Well, here we are with our last fire ceremony of the year, but first last fire ceremony of the year in the new temple. Everything is the first in the new temple. So it's so funny because everything in a way feels like a beginning. And that's appropriate, of course, for the new year. But right now we're really at this transition. And it's very important um, to enter into it uh, feeling the power to hit the divine, or not the divine, but the cosmic reset button. Just whatever there has been, good, bad, indifferent, let's just start over. This is why Damodaran also used, you don't leave. Yeah, you stay too. Um, this is why we have a new incarnation in the first place, viewed from a certain perspective. We get a chance to start again. We just cut our losses, whatever it was, and we also subconsciously bring the good karma forward that helps get us back on track in this life, in the new life. And so Divine Mother has this set up in the form of a new incarnation. And we have that also sort of in the day, that whatever the day was at the end, we go to sleep and we just all it gets carried away, and then we start in the morning. For example, sometimes we're going through a very difficult time, and when we wake up the next day, we don't remember it right away. And we're sort of, oh, what shall I do today? Oh, it's Monday. Oh, God. So just as an example. And so, but for that moment, we have that sort of fresh perspective. And Lahiri Mahashai said every breath can be a new incarnation. So we should approach this new year as a new incarnation, as a new opportunity, but with the benefit of remembering all the things in the past that are good. So as we go into the fire ceremony now, let's just think of offering whatever attachments we have, not attachment to the thing, not the thing. Suppose you're attached to some person, some relationship, some job, something, not to put the job in the fire, but the attachment to the fire, that I need this, to just say, God, I need you. I mean, sometimes we think I need this about this job, but maybe we thought that about the previous job, and then we got this job, and this job is better, and the next job will be even better. So we can't get too focused in the present, thinking that this is the end all and it must be this way forever. I mean, I'm thinking of a friend of mine who got a job situation was kind of up and down for a while, and then it really stabilized. Everything stabilized. He moved through that difficult karma. Porny, you also don't go. Yeah, sorry. I mean, none of you go, but but still. And so karma is finite. And so let us just say, whatever it is, I just offer it up and then feel God taking it. As I said earlier, feel God going with you forward. Feel God applauding you all the time. If you hear applause, that's Divine Mother. If you hear boo, then that's the other guy. And so don't listen to that. I love what Anandiji said. She was going through a dark mood, and she basically expressed it very subtly, but it sort of leaked out around Swami Kriyananda, and he didn't say anything in the moment. I mean, she was always very dignified, very everything, but still, I forget the particulars she describes in her book. And then the next day or two later, he saw her, and she described. She said, "Why do I have all of these sort of self-critical thoughts?" That I'm a bad person or whatever it is. And he said, it's Satan. Just that simple, not your Satan. That's what the voice says sometimes. It's just Satan. It's just Maya trying to bring us down. That's it. Just say, forget it. Don't reason, don't argue, don't debate. You can try that, and maybe in 30 seconds it works, but after 30 seconds, pull the plug. If you have ever dealt with a child who has this particular thing, I dealt with it a lot as a school teacher. No, it's playtime is over. Why? Well, because it's 12:30. Well, and playtime ends at 12. Why? Because, well, we have lunch, then we have playtime, then we have class. Why? Because we've got to learn science and we need a certain amount of time. That's why. Well, science is, wait a minute. Because I realized in order, why? Yin, 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 yin to infinity. The only way to end it was either to say, because I said so, which is what every adult ends up saying, or just by distracting them or enticing them. But I realized the question asked did not want a response. It just wanted to argue. And that's the thoughts in the head will do the same thing. Nah. Well, actually, nah. Just don't fall for it. So in the fire ceremony, just offer it all. Again, anything that holds you back, anything that makes you less free, that's the thing. The objects themselves may be a part of your life forever. The people may be a part of your life forever. They're not the problem. It's just that when we hold things too tight, this is all I have. It's not true. You have everything. Okay? Because we have God, because we have the masters to help us. Okay? So why don't we, if you can, come all the way up here. Ah, you have to play the mantras. I've got them. No, 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 I've got it right here. Oh, you want to light that? Does this have the? I hope so. Okay.
Om Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat Om Bhurbhuvah Swaha Om Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat Om Bhurbhuvah Swaha Om Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat Om Bhurbhuvah Swaha Om Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat Om Bhurbhuvah Swaha Om Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat Om Bhurbhuvah Swaha. Om Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimani Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat Om Bhurbhuvah Swaha Om Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimani Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat Om Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sagandim Pushtivartanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Nityormukshiyamamritat Swaha Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sagandim Pushtivartanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Nityormukshiyamamritat Swaha Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sagandim Pushtivartanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukshiyamamritat Swaha Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sagandim Pushtivartanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukshiyamamritat Swaha Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sagandim Pushtivartanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukshiyamamritat Swaha Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sagandim Pushtivartanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukshiyamamritat Swaha Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sagandim Pushtivartanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukshiyamamritat Swaha
Swamiji writes the affirmation for success as the first affirmation of the new year. So, this is what he writes. True success means transcendence. It means finding what we really want, which is not outward things, but inner peace of mind, self understanding, and above all, the joy of God. Outward success means transcendence also. It means rising above past accomplishments to reach new levels of achievement. Success can mean accepting failure too, when such acceptance helps us to transcend a false ambition. Every failure, moreover, can be a stepping stone to highest achievement. Success should not be measured by the things accomplished, but our increasing understanding ability and closeness to God. This is the affirmation I will read through once. I leave behind me both my failures and accomplishments. What I do today will create a new and better future filled with inner joy. Let us say this first in a loud voice. I leave behind me both my failures and accomplishments. What I do today will create a new and better future filled with inner joy. I leave behind me both my failures and accomplishments. What I do today will create a new and better future filled with inner joy. Now, in a slightly lower voice, I leave behind me both my failures and accomplishments. What I do today will create a new and better future filled with inner joy. Now, in a whisper, I leave behind me both my failures and accomplishments. What I do today will create a new and better future filled with inner joy. Now, concentrating at the spiritual eye, silently, mentally saying it. I leave behind me both my failures and accomplishments. What I do today will create a new and better future filled with inner joy. And let us pray together. O Creator of galaxies and countless blazing stars, the power of the very universe is thine. May I reflect that power in the little mirror of my life and consciousness. This is a letter from Master written or rather published in January of 1939. Yoganandaji writes, the echo of the sorrow and laughter of last year has died away. Now the encouraging, hope imparting song voice of the new year is resounding through us to remodel our life in a new way as we enter the portal of the new year. All weeds of worries of the past year must be left behind and never brought back. The seeds of all joys and achievements, all hopes, all good habits and thoughts, all noble desires, we must garner from the forsaken garden of the past year and sow them on the soil of new effort of every day in the new year, watering those good seeds of last year's experiences until our life becomes a fragrant garden of rare flowering qualities. Each new year comes to awaken our habit driven spirit to make new effort until the eternal freedom is usurped from the hands of ever pursuing karma. Let us all, hand in hand, with ever enlivened, unending, united mind, walk and dance forward until we reach the home of complete fulfillment, from whence we return no more.
On New Year's Eve, we gathered in the main chapel for a midnight meditation, again led by Master. At one point during the proceedings, he beat a large gong softly, then with gradually increasing volume, alternately decreasing and increasing the volume in waves. Imagine this as the sound of Om, he told us, spreading outward to infinity. At the same instant, 100 miles south in Encinitas, another group of disciples was meditating in the main room of the hermitage. They too heard the gong as Master was striking it. One of the monks later told me it was as though it were being struck in the hallway just outside the room we were in. The meditation that followed at Mount Washington was enthralling. Midnight came. Suddenly, waves of noise sweeping up from the city below and inward from the surrounding neighborhood, factory whistles, car horns, shouts, as countless celebrants ushered in the new year. The door of a neighboring house opened and a voice shouted into the night with a tone almost of desperation, "Happy New Year!" What a contrast between the frantic, emotional, almost febrile excitement in the sounds that were being unleashed by the thousands of celebrants around us, and the calm, expanding soul joy we experienced in ourselves in the sublime peace of our little chapel. And how blessed I reflected, how wonderful it was to be in this holy place at the feet of my divine Guru. I prayed that the new year would bring me an ever-deepening awareness of God's love.
So wonderful to hear, Master. And in addition to, of course, his message, which many of us may have heard before, it's still like hearing it for the first time. And over the years, we get closer and closer to him. And again, hearing his voice, he feels more and more with us, more and more. I shouldn't say alive, because of course he's alive, but just present. And if it's just the beginning for you, then I hope you feel just the same as well. I remember the first time I had heard this talk on a cassette tape that Ananda had released, but it was very sort of scratchy and hard to hear. And then this version came out on CD from YSS, and they had they had the original tapes, and they could engineer it and make it nice and clear. And I remember listening to it in my car, and I felt like I was just going to go into some kind of samadhi listening to it, because it was so powerful, so clear also. When they're that clear, you can just feel, Master, I mean, every sort of echo of the timbre of his voice. So, you know, it's so important to do the things that he said, that we just let go of this year. And then, as he said, and as Prasanna read, we enter into the new year with high hopes and enthusiasm. And after a while, you know, you sort of, your logic starts to kick in and say, okay, so this year is, you know, done and buried, and then the new year is starting. But what are we going to do at the end of next year? Are we going to end up saying the same thing? And in fact, last year we were dumping 2022 and embracing 2023, and now we're saying, "Pah, done with 2023, Vandam, and let's take on 2024." Are we doing something wrong? And of course not. The point is not that this will be our best year ever. Maybe it will by outer circumstances. Maybe it won't. You want your best year ever. You don't want your best year ever, because then everything after that is downhill. You want your best year so far. You know, so keep that in mind too. But we're going to have hard years. And if you haven't yet, well, then sorry to say, there's probably one coming at some point. The pendulum can't swing always one way. But when we have gone through a very hard time, what does it mean? That we sort of did the fire ceremony wrong and kind of brought in some bad things? Never. Because the outer circumstances are not what determine whether a year is good or even a lifetime is good. It's what we become through those things. So always remember, what am I becoming through this experience? When you go through something very difficult, you may be thinking, I'm becoming destroyed. I'm unbecoming. I'm becoming smashed. I remember one year for me that was particularly difficult, and it was very, very emotionally trying, and sort of, I had this worst fear, and that's exactly what happened in that year. And then I was talking with Jyotishji and Daviji afterwards, and they knew what had gone on, and Darmin and I were talking with them, and I said, you know, somehow when all the dust settled and the flames were finally put out, and I found that I was still alive, though a bit crispy, still alive, that I realized that I somehow just felt a little stronger. Not stronger like, no, like stronger like, still here, that I had survived, that I had endured. I didn't think I could go through something that difficult, and I did. I don't know how, just the heart was still beating, and it was sore, emotionally anyway. And and it took me, you know, about a year to sort of really recover, I would say, fully from that. But it was more than that. I wasn't just getting back to where I had been, it was more than that. I felt somehow more grown up, like I had been difficult. We can think that, well, Swamiji's consciousness was here, and anything he went through, he just sailed through it, and it would be a mistake. I don't think he went through it with the consciousness that I would have gone through if I had gone through that same thing. I think my consciousness would have ended if I had gone through that. But I said to him once, thank God you went through those tests, some of which are portrayed in the Answer movie. Thank God you went through that for our sake. No, I said, thank God you went through that. And he said, no, thank God you made it through that. And he said, yes. And I said, for our sake, as if he was kind of helping us through his example, living to be an example to teach us that way. He said, for me first. Meaning it was a real test that I had to go through. And so, in other words, don't sort of romanticize it or write poetry and just think that it was all just symbolic. It wasn't. And so let us just ask, what am I becoming through this? And because some circumstances you can't control. Yeah, but I'm seeing sometimes really bad circumstances, sometimes you can't control. That was, I think, one of the things that was the hardest thing for me about what I went through. It was so difficult, and there wasn't a damn thing I could do about it. And you sort of, it's strange too, because you say, oh, excuse me, hi, there must be some mistake, because actually we know each other, we like each other, you know me, you know I wouldn't be like that. It just sort of, it's almost as if you've been just kind of replaced with someone else, or everybody's vision has changed. And, I was naive enough to think that, we could, after all, we might have differences of opinion, but we all are one in our friendship and our God, and we have our, no, just knives. And Swamiji said, sometimes there is karma like that just comes. And all you can do is bravely put out as much positive energy as you can. You may be able to shift the karma, or you may just ride through it. But no matter what difficulty you've been through, when you make it through, especially on the spiritual path, you find somehow you feel a little lighter, as if some burden has been removed. And that's always true, because if nothing else, that bad karma came and went, and we're not carrying it around anymore. And that's very important to remember, because who knows? Remember the little boy who lost a finger, one of Master's disciples. It was in an accident, his finger was taken off. And he said it would have been much worse if Master hadn't been there. Somehow he knew. And it was sort of an expression of what Ramakrishna's wife had said, that Sharada Devi, that the disciple may have the karma to lose a leg, but may just get a scratch. Everything we're going through is probably just a scratch. May feel like a big scratch, but we're complaining, "Ow, to my mother, this scratch." And she's like, "Are you kidding? You were going to be ash, and you got the scratch." I mean, Babaji, you know the story of that whole thing. I can't tell the whole story in the time because we're on a schedule here. So we have to be ready by midnight. But so at the same time, when some things have gone really positively, really well, new beginnings, you might be ending the year feeling really good about it, or have high hopes that this success will continue. Fine. But just remember again, what am I becoming through it? Hopefully happier, hopefully freer. Well, I mean, at one point, Dhyanaji was telling Deviji about something very difficult that was going on, and something she'd never expected to happen. And Deviji said, at some point, you'll be able to say, now I've seen it all. And in such a joyful, free way. And you find that when you've gone through a very difficult thing, and then a little bit later, something else difficult happens, and you've recovered enough, you go, huh, this is a kind of problem I'm happy to deal with. Or you hear of somebody going through something difficult, and all your concern goes to them, and then you look back at I was really mad because Amazon had charged double for this thing, but then they had made a mistake, and this is the kind of problem I can deal with. This is not a big problem. And we realize that, we can actually be happy all the time. How, though, is always the question, and the answer is always the same: meditation, living in God. It always comes back to the same. And you could say, well, I mean, isn't there anything else? I mean, as the Swamiji said, Master used that phrase God is ever conscious, ever existing, ever conscious, ever new bliss. He said it's not as if you attain that state and then you wake up, what's on the menu for today? Oh, bliss again. It's not that. It's ever new. But really these things have to be felt. They have to be experienced. And there's been so many blessings in our lives this year. And Jyotishji and Davidji went back to America. They talked about India. They had to talk about their trip in Europe and in India, and all the 4 months they had to compress into about 40 minutes. And they said our work in India is growing. They gave details. They showed a slideshow. But Jyotishji said, "Let me just give you an example. When we dedicated the Chennai Center," and sort of our ears perked up. We dedicated the Chennai Center in 2016. It was so full that there wasn't even an aisle. And Dharmini said, in this year, for this center, for this dedication, and for these events, the temple is 2 times bigger and we will have an aisle. And Jyotish said, nope, there was no aisle. I was kind of hoping he would throw in, I can't tell the whole story, but Prem at one point was carrying a big tray of something all the way through over the heads of everybody trying to get to the front of the room. It was packed. He said it's just that's how the work is growing there. And so but it's just the example he happened to use of what's happening all over India. So it's of course that, but also we were very happy just because it helps us to feel closer to them and to everybody there. And a few people wrote to us saying, "Hi, I heard you didn't have a center aisle." That's what made me watch the sort of what. Congratulations, no center aisle. Okay, thanks. I didn't know what it meant till I saw that clip. So anyway, let us now get centered because we're about to hit midnight. Just again, whatever you want to hold in your heart, whatever you want to offer, however you want to, let's spend these minutes meditating, thinking of God, and then we'll go into the gong as just in the same way that Master did.